Just going to let some people get in here before we start talking about the events of today, spreading the word a little bit. Hope everybody's having a good week. Definitely did not plan on doing a show today, so excuse me if this is a little not put together. So basically, the whole reason that I wanted to do this episode was because something happened today that I don't think any of us were expecting. At about noon, the Panthers announced that they have fired their GM of the last 4 years. 4 years. And they are moving on. Now, what we need to remember is that when he came in, the Panthers had not had a winning season in 4 years. And then he came in, and we went 40, 23, and 1, and had 3 back-to-back NFC South championships. So it's hard to argue with his results. But that being said, he's done a lot of things that have rubbed people the wrong way. One of the most egregious offenses, of course, is the letting go of Steve Smith. And it's not just the way, or it's not just the fact that we let these guys go, it's the way in which we let them go that is really pushing a lot of buttons. That's noticeable with D'Angelo Williams. It's noticeable with Steve Smith. John Beeson came on, I think it was ESPN earlier today, and was talking about the firing of Dave Gettleman. And he said that it was odd that with the way that he was fired, he didn't even get a handshake on the way out the door. So that kind of tells you what is going on inside the locker room when it comes to dealing with general management. The reason that he was let go is likely, because it's all speculation at this point, the reason he was let go is likely due to the contract talks of Thomas Davis and Greg Olsen. There have been a number of rumors out there that say that he was planning on giving Kelvin Benjamin a contract extension before Greg Olsen, which a lot of us would have trepidations about. And I think this is the final incident where the Big Cat actually just had to step in and say, you know what, we're not going to do this. You can't just run this the way that you want. And I think that really is what Gettleman wanted. He wanted a place that he could go in and run it exactly how he wanted without upper management, without ownership trying to put constraints on him. And that's just not how the Big Cat works. He is not going to be told what he's going to do with his team. He's not going to be told how it's going to be run. And I think that that's what really pushed him over the edge. Joe Person actually went out earlier today and said that there's been tension between the front office and the locker room because of unpopular moves that Gettleman's made. He told that it's only increased as of late. So I think that the fact that all of this is just coming out now is a little strange, but we have heard rumblings in the past that players were unhappy about the handling of Steve Smith and the handling of D'Angelo Williams and Josh Norman. I forgot to mention Josh Norman. I think that that's a big stemming issue with the Big Cat was the way that we released Josh Norman and just completely gave up any kind of compensation that we could have gotten for him, much less we had a Pro Bowl cornerback that we just let go. It was a brain teaser then, and it is one now. Granted, I'm fully on board with Bradbury and Worley. I think they're going to be great, but we had a proven commodity, and for some reason, David Gettleman decided that he didn't want to be on this team, or he didn't want him to be on this team. So Albert Breer also reported earlier today that Gettleman and Richardson had disagreements over the team's direction this offseason, and some key players weren't fond of Gettleman. Obviously, if you have people in the locker room who are afraid for their jobs, who are more focused on the business side because of the way that management is handling, just because of the way that these players were being handled, it's easy to see why the players that are even still in the locker room would be focused on things other than playing football. Let's see, what's the next thing? The loss of Brandon Beane definitely doesn't help the issue. He went up to be the GM in Buffalo. I'm really at a loss for words because, like I said, I did not wake up today thinking that we were going to have to go on a GM hunt. And speaking of a GM hunt, there is word floating around the internet. And of course, everything at this point is rumors. Everything is just hearsay at this point. But there's been rumors about Marty Herney being an interim general manager, which I don't know, man. I still have a bad taste in my mouth from those running back contracts. But at the same time, like, if it's just in an interim position, I don't understand hiring an interim, because if you hire your GM now, they can start focusing on next year's draft. They can start focusing on next year's personnel. The GM's job is pretty much over at this point, other than trades, obviously. But, I mean, the preparation for the draft, the actual draft, getting everybody there, it's pretty much over. So the former Panthers now have something to say, too. Steve Smith obviously tweeted an Instagram post that a lot of us have seen at that point, but it was basically a picture of Steve laughing and saying, "I know how you feel, Gettleman," being pushed out the door. And you can't blame Steve. That's just him being him. D'Angelo said that the Panthers are officially off the list of teams that he won't play for now that the snake in the grass, Dave Gettleman's gone. D-Will, I don't know if you could get a jersey on this team, bro. I really don't. And not with how stacked we are at running back right now. I don't think you could beat out Jonathan Stewart. I don't think you could beat out Christian McCaffrey. I'm not sure that at this point you're going to beat out Fozzie Whitaker. I don't know. Because you had a great year with the Steelers, but I have a bad taste in my mouth from your last season here. So there we go. Josh Norman tweeted out a little emoji face talking about how he was watching and kind of laughing at the Dave Gettleman situation. Joe Person did say later in the day that two names to keep an eye on as the Panthers' next GM are Trent Kirchner, who is the director of player personnel for the Seattle Seahawks, and Ryan Cowden, who's the player personnel director for the Tennessee Titans. I like Trent Kirchner. There was one other name, is Mark Kontz, which is the player personnel here in Carolina. Let's see. Oh, yeah, Trent Kirchner is the co-director of personnel in Seattle and has been instrumental in their success recently. He was kind of one of the guys behind the Jimmy Graham and Max Unger trade. Jeremy Igo tweeted out earlier today that Steve Smith retiring a Panther this season is now a real possibility. We all know that Steve's major issue with the Carolina Panthers was Dave Gettleman, and he's made it known that he doesn't hate the city of Charlotte, he doesn't hate the fan base, and that he's not going to allow one person to change his mind about that. And we all know who that one person was. The one thing I have heard is about the timing. As I mentioned a little bit before, I don't think the timing is as big of an issue as people are making it out to be. The GM's job is mostly over except for evaluation of the current team and possible holes to fill through trades. and then starting to look forward to next year. So if we hire someone now rather than hiring an interim, they can get a jump start for next year instead of having to wait, and then we hire someone in December and then they have to draft in 4 months. They have to learn who we have. They have to learn who we are losing. They have to go through free agency, and then they have to go to the draft, all in 4 months. I would much rather them have we would have 7 or 8 months now. So I think that as far as the timing goes, you let Dave Gettleman follow through with his plan from last year, follow through with his draft, and then bring in the new guy to start working on next year. I'm hoping that doesn't mean anything about the way that the team will play this year. I don't think it will, because I think that, quite honestly, Dave Gettleman built a good team. I really do. I think that he built a good team. I think that he got rid of some pieces that could make it a better team, but I like the fact that they brought back Julius Peppers. I like the fact that they brought back Captain Munnerlyn. Hell, I like the fact that they brought in Matt Khalil. The other thing that I'm concerned about is if we don't have a good season. It's hard to talk about this because it sounds stupid. He's won 2 Coach of the Year awards. He has taken us to the Super Bowl. But typically, when a GM is brought in, they want their head coach. And it would be real hard to do that if we go, say, 11-5 or, hell, 10-6 this year. But if we don't have a winning record, if we go 5-11, if we went 6-10, I'm not saying that it's out of the realm of possibility that we move on from Ron Rivera, and that's not what I want. But like I said, when you bring in a GM, they typically want to build the team that they want to build, and hell, that could mean we lose players that we really love again. But I'm hoping that the firing of Dave Gettleman is to bring someone in that will keep the Panther greats like Thomas Davis and Greg Olson, but at the same time not make the financial mistakes that Marty Herney made in the past, like dedicating $80 million to a backfield. So it's a strange situation. It's one that I definitely did not foresee talking about when I woke up this morning. I think that I'm just going to have to trust the big cat. I know people like to hate on him, and people want to hate on him for some reason, but that man brought me football. That man brought me football in Charlotte. And I love this team. It's hard for me to say a negative word about the person that allows me to have this passion, and it allows me to have this room full of crap that I spent way too much money on, and it allows me to love something so much that I care and sit with my friends every week and talk about football. And I'm just going to have to trust that he made the right decision here. There were definitely things about Dave Gettleman I didn't like. That's a fact. But you can't argue with results. There has never been a back-to-back champion in the NFC South. And then we won it 3 years in a row. Once with a losing record. That's ridiculous. Our coach has won 2 Coach of the Year awards. We've hit on pretty much every first-round pick so far. Vernon Butler can prove me right on that. We're building the offense around Cam Newton now, which is what the entire fan base had been asking for. And just the way that you handle people matters. The way that you handle people, it matters in this business. Dave Gettleman made the right choices. I'm not even going to say that getting rid of Steve was the wrong choice. It hurts me. And I love Steve, but sometimes you have to make hard choices. but you can do it in a classy way. And I think that's the problem that Dave Gettleman had. I think that he didn't care enough about the people that he was dealing with. He only cared about the players. If that makes any sense. He only cared about who they were on the field, and they didn't care. He didn't care about the fact that Josh Norman is a South Carolina boy, the fact that he went to Coastal Carolina and got drafted by the Carolina Panthers, and that he got to stay home. It is what it is. But to Kenneth Hoyle's point, the Patriots do get by on that, but not every GM is Bill Belichick. He's also the head coach. Like, he knows what he needs, and he knows how to deal with players. If he didn't, he wouldn't be the head coach. Bill Belichick is a monster, and there's no denying that. Like, he's a different breed. It reminds me that one of the more successful GMs of the last little while, I think, at least in drafting and talent evaluation, was John Dorsey. But he was forced out of KC for a very similar reason to why Dave Gettleman is out here now. He fired Jeremy Maclin via voicemail. He released Jamal Charles after Jamal had told him that he would come back for the veteran minimum, which is a ridiculous deal for Jamal Charles. So if that's enough to force a guy out, you do it with Steve Smith, you do it with D'Angelo Williams, you do it with Josh Norman, you do it with John Beeson. Granted, John had already been replaced by Luke, but at the same time, the way that he handled it was wrong. You do all that, and then you look like you're going to do the same thing with players like Thomas Davis, who is Mr. Carolina Panthers. He is everything this team represents in my eyes. He is the consummate professional. He is a heartbeat. He is everything. He will have a statue of himself outside this stadium. When you threaten or look like you're going to do the same thing to a player like him or Greg Olsen, the guy who was almost Man of the Year, fuck off. That's no. I understand the big cat pulling the trigger. That's pretty much all I got as far as information right now. I'm sure that information is going to be coming out over the next couple of days. Let's take a look back through these comments, see if I got any questions I need to answer. Let's see. Carl Van says, well, this is what JR wanted when he fired Hurney, and he got it. No arguments there. Hurney, he was a loving, caring individual, and he gave out a lot of money because of it. And when you brought in Dave Gettleman, we said he is going to fix our cap issues. And to his credit, he did. And the way he did it was by getting rid of a lot of people. So I completely agree with you. It's what JR wanted. Let's see. I know it's really early, but who would you want us to grab for GM? Blake McKinney, my boy. Thanks for your service. At this point, I would go Trent Kirchner, the director of pro personnel out in Seattle. I think that he's a good choice. Granted, I don't know a ton of GM candidates. Like, I really don't, because they're usually promoted from within. They're usually no names. Can you tell me the assistant director of pro personnel here in Carolina? I don't know. I know that our assistant GM is now in Buffalo as their GM, so it would have been nice to know earlier. Anyway, Carl Van said Hurney built a Super Bowl team, so did Gettleman. Wave bye-bye to Shula and Rivera if we don't do well. Again, I agree 100%. There's no doubt about that. Oh, you got to win. Um, Kenneth Hoyle, I agree. Sad to see the Panthers store doesn't even sell elite TD jerseys. I didn't even know that. That is some bullshit. TD better protest. Damn. Like, I love me some TD. How the hell are they not selling elite jerseys? I bet it's only Cam, Luke. It's probably just Cam and Luke, isn't it? Does the Big Cat make Rivera a temporary GM? Uh, you know, that's an interesting question. As I said, Bill Belichick is the Patriots GM, but do you want Rivera in a year where he needs to win to be focused on anything other than football operations? Do you want him to deal with players? That's an interesting dynamic. I honestly think you'd be better off bringing in an interim GM in, even if it was Marty Hurney. I wouldn't allow Marty Hurney to sign any deals. It would be purely, if we needed a trade, he could make a trade, but it would have to be approved by Rivera and the Big Cat. I don't want Ron thinking about any of that. I want him focusing on football. I want to win. I had another question over there that Sam Jefferson said the Josh Norman situation is really where this firing started at. I think it can go back farther than that. I think that it can go all the way back to John Beeson. I think that John Beeson was mishandled and disrespected when we let him go. And everybody kind of brushed it off because we had Luke, and it was, he's going to a better place, blah, blah, blah. You know what? I have nothing but respect for John Beeson. I love Beast. But I can't imagine that sat very well with other players. And then, of course, Steve Smith and D'Angelo Williams, and then the Josh Norman thing, of course. I think Josh Norman is maybe the big catalyst. I think that letting TD or Greg Olsen go would be on an equivalent with the Josh Norman situation. But I think that it started way earlier than this. I think that it's a habit of Dave's that has existed since he got the job. I think it's just how he runs. I think it's who he is. Let's see. TJ McBride, Shula should have been fired. There's something I think we can all agree on. I am scared to death that Mike Shula is going to have no idea what to do with Christian McCaffrey. I'm terrified. So we'll just have to see. Let's see, Kenneth Hoyle. Okay, so they got Cam. They got Cam elite jerseys, Greg elite jerseys, which makes sense. And they make elite jerseys of him, and we were going to argue about paying him, and he wants to pay KB before Olsen. That's stupid. Luke and KB. I don't understand having KB up there. Like, I love KB, but he needs to show me something more. Rivera don't have the balls for that. I assume he's talking about the GM. Ron Turner. It's North Turner's boy. That's an interesting idea. If Ron was the GM, Greg Hardy would still be here. I cannot speak to that. But I know that nobody's going to touch Greg Hardy now. Does Christian McCaffrey take over as first string, or does Jay Stu keep running prime time and Christian compliments him? I think at the beginning of the season, we're going to, unless something magical happens in training camp, this is all speculative. I think we're going to start Jay Stu, and I think he's going to get the majority of the carries, and we're going to start working Christian more up to 50-50 and then move him into the prime back situation. You take a quarterback, or you take a quarterback. You take a running back in the top 10, and they're going to be your number one. It's just the way it is. Or you misdrafted. They need, if you draft in the top 10, they need to come in and make an impact. That's the bottom line. Could Bean come back as the head? No, Bean is going to be very happy with his GM position in Buffalo. That team is starving for some good player management, and I think he's going to provide for him. So I think that he is going to stand pat. James Dickerson, need more TD jerseys. Agreed. RT Garner, Beeson Smith, list goes on and on. Agreed. Mike Mayock for GM, perhaps. That is interesting because Mike Mayock actually interviewed for the San Francisco position, I believe. He interviewed somewhere this offseason. And that's interesting. I don't know enough about Mike Mayock's background to make a prediction on that, but I do know that I don't put a whole lot of stock into the draft prognosticators, and that seems to be a lot of what he does right now. But I'd have to look more into his background and see how he deals with people. It's a tough job. The GM job is not easy. People do not like you. You have to fire people. There's no way around it. You have to fire people, and sometimes it's people that you really like. The problem with Dave Gettleman was he was kind of a piece of shit about how he went about it. He was indirect. He was uncompromising, which can be a good thing, but when you're dealing with people, you have to take into consideration the fact that these are human beings that you're dealing with, and they have to pick up, when you fire them, they have to pick up their families, and they have to move sometimes 3,000 miles away. You can't just push them out the door and not shake their hand or say goodbye or offer help or any of that. That's not, and I believe that's not what Big Cat wants. I believe that's not what Jerry Richardson believes in. I have to believe that because I believe that he's a good person. And I don't believe that the firings that we've had are justified or some of them were justified, but the way that they were gone about was unjustified. Let's see. Beans grown, bro, not coming back. Quarterback or quarterbag? Love the podcast. Well, I like it. I'll take a quarterback. Come on. I think this is a relief to the players, says Jarvis Price. I see us having a great season. You know what? If it brings up team morale, I'm all for it. Jabril Gibbs, should Steve Smith come back one more season for us or retire with us now that Dave Gettleman is gone? I think Steve's done. Steve wants to go home and be with his kids. He lives here in Charlotte. He and Angie, and they are very happy living here and being retired. I heard an interview with him the other day, and I don't think that he's going to come back and play. But I think that Dave Gettleman is now gone, and that makes Jerry Richardson he's always been the be-all, end-all. But I think that is going to be happening this season. I think that now that Dave is gone, Steve will come back into the building, we'll talk to the guys, and we'll retire a Panther, and he'll get a statue outside, and he'll go into the Ring of Honor because he's the greatest fucking Panther of all time. Motherfuckers. There is no doubt about it. Steve Smith, number one. How much room do we have to play with on the salary cap? Oh, man, you had to ask, didn't you? Last time I checked, I want to say it's not much. I want to say it's like 3.5. Let's see. One of the benefits of being on my computer doing this, the Panthers' current salary cap figure is... It still says, I wish I could show you guys this, it still says Carolina Panthers, General Manager Dave Gettleman since 2013. Well, it is not one of
That's not right. It says that we currently have 16 million in cap space. I can't see that being right. Who knows? Maybe. Anyway, but yeah, I got nothing else, you guys. I appreciate you guys watching this. All 30 of you. We got 33 comments. It was a good show. Check out those notes that I made. Yeah, so Panthers Poundcast will be back this Sunday. And after FanFest, we're going to go back to our weekly format. We are bi-weekly in the off-season. We've been doing it every other Sunday. You guys have seen our new set, which is nice. It's over closer to the other guys. It's not as nice as my house. Just kidding, Plow. But yeah, it's a new setup. Los Pantera will be back. He's been gone for about a month and a half. He has been with his family, going to New York, going to the beach, doing all sorts of stuff. We plan on talking about this more and giving opinions more on Sunday when we should have more information. Be sure to tune into that. Go over, like us on YouTube, or subscribe to us on YouTube, Panthers Poundcast. Like us on Facebook. Be sure to follow. Make sure that we are always going to be seen in your news feed when we release a new video. And thanks for watching. Keep pounding.